Hello, and welcome to the OnStage Colorado Podcast. Once again, I'm AlexMiller.
And I'm Toni Tresca. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the OnStage Colorado Podcast. We are back again this week to round up some of the shows we've seen, talk news from around the state, and give this week's top 10 Colorado headliners.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. So, for our main topic this week, Toni, you pointed out there's just a lot of news going on around the state in the theater and other entertainment news arenas. So we thought we would focus on that for our main topic this episode.
Yeah, so we are going to dig into some of the news items that are going on from all around the state in our main section. So no news bag section. Consider our main topic the bag of news.
Yeah, Tony's big red sack of news.
That's right. And after our news roundup, we are going to be featuring Alex's interview with Len Matheo and Luke Sorge to talk about the world premiere of Luke's new play, National Bohemians, at Miners Alley in Golden, which we both saw.
Yeah. It was a really fun conversation. Of course, I know Len really well, and it was great to meet Luke and have him talk about his play and the path to development. And finally, sometimes plays take a long time to get to actually being in front of audience, and this is one of those. But I think that it was well worth the effort. So as we move into our, talking about what we saw. So yeah, we were at opening night of National Bohemians and at Miners Alley in Golden. And so the thing that's interesting about this is that Len Matheo, who's the artistic director at Miners Alley, who's not been on stage, I think he's maybe done like a Love Letters maybe or something, but he hasn't really been
That's
in a
right.
full...
He's done it with his wife, Lisa.
Yeah, but this is his first real full run in like a decade. And man, he was great. I really was impressed. I thought, I wasn't surprised. I mean, I figured Len would be, strong actor on stage since he's been doing it for a while. And that's where a lot of people, who wind up in admin start out as, acting. So, but National Bohemians is a lot of fun. It's a hurricane story. So there's this a group of Maryland, three brothers and a daughter in this, I guess it's kind of like a garage, right?
Yeah, it's like the workspace. One of the brothers is kind of working on this boat throughout the first act, in particular, kind of fixing this boat up, and so yeah, you're kind of led to believe that it's kind of a garage type space. There's a raised loft up top, but it doesn't look super comfortable. There's like a chair up there. There's a couch down on the bottom.
Yeah.
There's a fridge stocked full of Natty Bows.
Right. Yeah, the couch looks particularly uncomfortable as Stephen Burge was trying to lie on it. So in addition to a great cast, along with Len, is Stephen Burge, Tim Fishbaugh, and Jenna Mulrays. I have to say one of the things that was really impressive about this show is just the stagecraft in having, because this storm is not like a 5-minute thing. It's like through most of the show, and
That's right.
it increases in intensity, and so the trio of John Hauser on sound, Vance McKenzie on lighting, and also the scenic design by Xander Claypool. Altogether, really convincing storm effects, lightning, like building shaking thunder, which was really impressive with the sound system they have in there. And what did you think of all that, Tony?
Yeah, very finely tuned production design all around. The boat in particular, I think, also it's practical as well, as you'll see throughout the show. I think that the weather effects that they do, the lighting and sound you mentioned, in addition, anytime they open the doors, they have some kind of cloths that are just in the background that are blowing to kind of create this rippling wind effect, in addition to kind of a water spurting effect that is emitting real water both in the background as well as onto the performers as they come onto the stage, to really kind of create this, as you mentioned before, this really condensing hurricane environment that persists throughout the entirety of the first act and a lot of the second act as well.
Yeah. Even like when they open a door to go out, the sound goes up, and then as soon as the door slows, it was very well timed, so really well done.
Yeah, and I guess this team has some practice doing this.
Yeah.
with last season's Misery, as I was talking with John Hauser, who did some of the design work on that production as well. He joked that he used some of the sound effects, or actually, maybe I'm not sure if he was joking now, but he joked that he was after the show that he had reused some of the sound effects from Misery there. But there are a lot more. You can tell that they've done a lot of work on that sound system since Misery was one of their first productions in that new space, and sound system's really been finely tuned. And I want to go back to the performances a little bit more. Len's really great. He's playing that kind of conservative brother who's at kind of this midlife crisis. His life is
Right.
falling apart. He's going through a divorce. His mistress did not his mistress is going to have to get an abortion, but then is being counseled by his therapist's wife,
Yeah.
aka leading to this divorce. It's very funny. Steven is playing this gay brother who lives out in LA. He's a TV writer, and he's kind of also going through relationship turmoil, as well as you kind of learn some other personal issues as well. And then Tim plays this other brother who has been taking care of the mom
Right.
at this set in this setting, while they're kind of out in other places living their life. And the central question of the piece is kind of like, who gets to decide what to do with this mom now that she's at the end of her life? Like, who gets to decide when her life is over, and who gets to decide what her quality of life is?
Yeah, exactly. Those are big questions. And having gone through the death of both of my parents in the last, decade or so, I know, that those are really tough, to confront those. But at the same time, it's a really funny play. And oh my God, Stephen
Mhm.
Burge, every word out of his mouth in this play was funny. He's just such a great comic actor. He's also a good dramatic actor. We don't see him on stage that much, but yeah, great performance by him, and also by so Tim was kind of more of the straight man. He didn't have as much fun. He didn't have as many fun lines, but he was solid, and then Jenna was great as usual.
Yeah, she's kind of playing the younger daughter who is an influencer who, as one character accuses her as perhaps exploiting her grandmother's
Right.
uh, kind of condition for social media clout and for content that she's posting. So there's a lot of really interesting kind of commentaries on our modern world, even though it is set very specifically in 2014. So don't expect any current political
Yeah.
references. It's very much a period piece in that kind of regard. But it's interesting. It's a period piece of 2014, which is not that long ago.
Yeah. How long do you have to go back to actually call something a period piece? I don't know if 2014 counts, but um, but yeah. So that was a really great show, and it runs all the way through April 28th, so plenty of time to get out to that show. And then we were also same weekend, and Tony and I aren't always at the same shows. It just so happened that we happened to be at both of these openings this weekend. So A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder at the Arvada Center. Great show, really quirky musical, and Marco Robinson really brought it, I thought, in the show. We've seen him in a lot of things. He was the love interest in Waitress at the Arvada Center last year, and he was also in the 39 Steps at the Denver Center a couple of years ago. Really, really great actor, and also one of the members of the Denver's only over 30 boy band, right?
I think that's right. I think yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a man of many talents.
D-Town,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
So yeah,
Uh, he's playing Monty, the central gentleman in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, who kind of murders his way through the Dysquith family, who is this. They're a rich family who he finds out he is related to, but his mom was kind of disowned by the Dysquiths because she chose to marry for love rather than for money or for property. And so she gets completely disowned. He finds out later in life that he's distantly connected, and he's only 8 people away from being in succession to being the Earl.
right.
I think it's the Earl, right? Of this,
I
or
think so. The Lord of the Manor or something.
Lord,
Yeah,
Duke,
yeah.
some kind of royalty person in charge. And so he figures the quickest way to get up that chain of succession is just start off and die squiths.
Yeah. Yeah. And so no spoiler there. That pretty much is established well early in the play. And yeah, it reminded me a lot of a Gilbert and Sullivan kind of show in terms of the patter, the very clever, funny lyrics to all the songs, but, with kind of a more modern spin, and lots of great costumes, great set. the usual things you would expect from the Ayurveda Center. But yeah, a fun show altogether. I think we felt that there's one character who played, or one actor who plays a lot of different characters, and we thought he was maybe a little bit one note. Even though he was very funny, he struggled to modulate his performances a little bit.
Yeah, I believe Shabazz Green, is that the performer's
I don't know.
name?
Somehow I walked out without the program. I need to find a program. Um,
Was right. Um, yeah, Shabazz Green.
okay.
We
Um,
can take that again. Yeah.
um, Although, yeah, there was one Shabazz Green who played a lot of different characters. Was very funny, but a little one note in the performances. I thought, the costumes were always different and some great quick changes there. But I think we both felt like could have used a little bit of variation
I agree. A lot of his characters were mostly variations of screaming, which
or
is
yelling.
funny, and his characters are dying quite a bit, so it makes sense that when one is dying, one might be exclaiming
Uh-huh.
in a loud manner. But however, it does kind of get repetitive, and so I was kind of hoping for a little bit more variation in it. And I've seen this musical done before, and so I've seen a lot more modulation being able to done with that character. But I also wanted to shout out Andrea Leigh Robinson, who was playing she was playing one of the love interests in the musical. She played Chabelle, who is kind of very kind of focused on society and kind of moving up in the world.
Right.
Monty is pining after her, and she is very funny. Her reactions, in particular, there's a great scene at the dinner party in Act Two where she's trying to make conversation and
Huh?
fit in, and she keeps saying the most. She's trying to like, has anybody been to the symphony lately? Looks around, oh God, and then just collapses
Right. Right.
after each time she tries to make conversation. I just found it very, very amusing.
Yeah, and they've lavished the best costumes on her too. She had some great outfits, including one little kind of like, I don't know, sort of lingerie thing that was during a very funny scene where he's managing his two love interests between two different rooms with a Carter in between. That was very well done, very funny.
Yeah, a shout out to Jeffrey Kent and the team Jeff directed the piece and really looked it looked really well done. I'm not normally a fan of projection designs either, but this is 2 weeks in a row where I have to admit I thought that they were quite well integrated into this. There's a back wall of projections that kind of have a watercolor kind of effect to them, so they look like very. There's a lot of artistry to these kind of projections, and they're used in very creative ways throughout the piece.
Yeah, there's one where a character falls to his death, and another one where they're going upstairs, where they use projections very effectively, and it's neat. It's that intersection between live and you know, I don't know what would you call that? It's not pre-recorded, but it's like it's definitely pre-made, or it's a living backdrop of sorts.
Yeah, it's kind of an AR, an augmented reality kind of experience because the characters are kind of interacting with it, like with the stairs, or there's a character, one of the die squiths dies via bees, and the bees are kind of attacking the
Right, right.
character through the screen. Yeah, it's very much live and used rather than a stagnant piece that's just projected into the background. To kind of cut corners on the
Yeah.
set because rest of the set also was very lavishly done. I I thought it was in fact a Brian Mulgrave set at first, but, which is quite a compliment. I mean
Yeah.
that in the best of ways, but this was actually Matthew S. Crane's work, so I wanted to shout out that it was very well done.
Yeah, for sure. So you had on your list of things you saw was an avalanche game. So how would you describe an avalanche game from the point of view of a theater experience?
What was interesting, this is my first it's at the Ball Arena, I've been to the Ball Arena many times for concerts, comedy events, but this was my first time going for any sporting event, which is probably blasphemous for anybody who's not in like the live theatrical and
Uh-huh.
performance community.
Right.
Everybody else in Denver is probably rolling their eyes at me, but I did. I like the Avalanche. I like hockey. I've been getting into it quite a bit more over the past year. This and decided to go for the first time with my girlfriend, and so we were up in the nosebleeds. Can't say that we had the kind of the best seats in the place, but the atmosphere in there is electric. It was a Thursday night. They were playing the LA Kings. They kicked their ass too, 4-0. It absolutely demolished them, which was great to see. It, on a Thursday night, pretty much sold out all of
Yeah.
Ball Arena, which is, I think, as somebody who we're always kind of having this constant conversation about how theaters are struggling to attract audiences, tickets too high, people won't do it. They won't, if parking isn't accessible, they won't
Yeah.
come. Well, Ball Arena and the Avs game kind of stands counter to all of that. Tickets were like
Everything is a pain in the ass and expensive, right?
exactly, $40 a ticket. Then you have to pay unless you do public transportation, another $30 there. Everything inside the stadium is expensive. It's massive. And yet it was super crowded, and I had a great time. The
Hmm.
energy in there was freaking electric. They had tons of live performances and things mixed in there. They
Right.
had tons of games. It was very rowdy, super fun atmosphere. So, I think there's a lot that can be learned from that for people who are doing other kind of performance events. Is just if you really own it and make the event you're actually doing an experience, that what they want to go do, people will put up with a lot of crap. You just have to make
Yeah,
sure you've got a product that's worth selling to them.
that's right. I will say I have never seen a sporting event in the Ball Arena either. So I do hope to go to an
Heyo.
Avs game. Yeah, my daughter Michaela, she's
Uh-huh.
32, and she suddenly became like interested in the Avs a couple of years ago, and then started playing hockey. And so I've actually been going to hockey
That's right.
games,
Yeah.
watching her. And I was like, well, this is actually kind of a cool game. Maybe I should go see the pros sometime. So all
I
right,
hope to
well
go
that's
to a game next season, Alex. The season is pretty much done at this point. There's only a couple
right.
more games left, but maybe next year.
Are they going to make it to the playoffs? Do we know, or is that still TBD?
It looks like it. They've been doing pretty well this year. So it's projected that they will. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, moving on. I had a quick correction from last week. We forgot to include Aurora's Vintage Theater on last week's Spring Theater preview. That was an oversight on my part. I had intended to shout it out its upcoming production of Ride the Cyclone, but I just ended up in kind of trying to assemble that list, left this one out. But this is a regional premiere of that musical that runs May 2nd through June 8th, follows 6 teenagers from a Canadian chamber choir whose lives are cut short in a freak accident aboard a roller coaster. And then when they wake up, a fortune teller invites them to tell a story to win a prize and return to life. So this is a very popular show. Blew up on TikTok a couple years ago. It's been done at some colleges, including here in Colorado recently. But this is the first time it's being done in the metro area. So definitely want to shout that out. That's a spring theater show that you should definitely add to your list.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
And then also, kind of staying over in the vintage sphere, we got a comment this week. RJ wrote on my review of Guys and Dolls, which was up over at Aurora. I think it just closed recently, but they said, "quote Guys and Dolls at the Vintage was outstanding. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really appreciate OnStage Colorado and all the platforms you use to communicate and inspire. Podcast, website, calendar, and insightful articles like this. Much appreciated. I truly love to see." All the art and live theater throughout the entire state. I'm a current subscriber and have season tickets to multiple programs, including Candlelight Dinner Theater, Denver Ballet, DCPA Musicals, and Denver Opera. So it's a great comment, and thank you, RJ. We really appreciate you supporting the site, and glad you find all of this stuff helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. We always appreciate it. Sure. So as you said, normally we would do our news section, but since it's our main topic this week, so we can just shift gears and get to the whole shebang. So I noticed that. So you also write for Westword, in different different amounts, I guess I would say. But you had the Best at Denver awards just came out from Denver Westward, and noticed a lot of arts groups sharing their wins all over social media. I figured you probably had a big hand in that, Tony. So you want to share a bit about some of the awards?
Sure, yeah. So the Best of Denver has been published regularly by the outlet every year since 1984, and they try to select the best of the city, often in kind of some witty, funny, silly categories. And there's two kind of versions of this. There's the readers who they vote on all of these, a bunch of different categories, and they select their winners. And then the editors' choices, which features awards in arts and entertainment, food and drink, shopping and services, music and venues, cannabis and more, and sports and recreation. And this year, I was asked to select the theater and comedy winners, which fall in the arts and entertainment category. So if you're mad about any of the awards, only be mad. You can only be mad at me if you're upset in those categories.
Okay. Well, this first category I thought was, is this a category every year? Best theater expansion?
Oh no. So that's a fun thing about all the categories and titles. You just kind of you
Uh-huh.
get to suggest both the award itself as well as the winner when you nominate these things. So, best theater expansion, I chose Su Teatro this year because of their acquisition of the Blue Building, which was formerly owned by the Morrises of AEG, which is right next to their property, and it's a part of their kind of vision to expand the cultural campus of Su Teatro and ensure that Chicano voices are preserved in that area, despite the ongoing gentrification that's happening along Santa Fe Drive. So this year, I thought it was appropriate to include this award and give it to them.
Okay. Speaking of gentrification, there was also a best stand against gentrification category.
That's right. So I gave this one to the Bug Theater because they are in a former arts district on Navajo Street. But now, if you've been to Navajo Street, it's mostly trendy coffee shops, fine dining, and yoga places and overpriced apartments. There's really the only art venue left is the Bug. They've been there for 30 years. It's their 30-year anniversary. And so just wanted to kind of shout that out and celebrate them.
Okay. And this next one I definitely agreed with was best immersive experience, going to the Catamounts for Impossible Things.
Yeah, this was one of hands down a really easy one to pick, particularly when you're looking at the Denver metro area. Off Center normally competes here, but they brought in a ton of touring productions last year,
Yeah.
and so the Catamounts, Lonnie Hansen, and the rest of the team over there. This work was a really interesting piece at a graduation and kind of exploring what comes next via these kind of classic childhood story characters. And like you and I have talked about many times on this podcast and in our own awards, the Oscars, this was a very, very well done production.
It was, yeah. Best musical, Chorus Line. I think a lot of people love that one. Family Theater Company.
Yep, for their 35th anniversary, it was really a total reimagining of a piece that I think we've all seen before, have seen done to death, and said, maybe I don't need to see that anymore.
Right.
But Family made a pretty compelling pitch that for the for seeing the show again in a totally new light and kind of leaning in on the imperfections and kind of in a show that is normally so focused on the straight lines and achieving uniformity, kind of spotlighting the individuals who are part of that chorus line was really radical.
Okay, and then for best dance experience, you picked "Alone Untethered" from Hold Tight, which surprised me a little bit. I didn't think it was the best of the ones I've seen from them, and there were certainly some good Wonderbound, but I don't see a ton of dance, so I can't really say.
I was a little bit underwhelmed by some of Wonderbound's offerings last year, and I thought that what Gwen and Hold Tight were able to achieve in this one-person show and kind of immersive experience was really impressive and very deeply personally effective. But I know that from our conversations and reading your review that you were not as moved by this piece as I was, but I just found it deeply affecting, and I thought her work on it was really fascinating and kind of pushing the dance medium forward.
Yeah, one thing I always give props to for Gwen and Hold Tight is the passion and the creativity that they bring to everything. So, best ensemble, definitely agreed with this one. You want to tell us what best ensemble was?
Yeah, it's a jukebox for the Algonquin over at Miners Alley in Golden. We were just talking about them with Natty Bose. They're world premiere play. This was the regional premiere of Paul Strolley's production. Really well done, set in a retirement community. Super funny, super reflective, and a true ensemble. And it follows a group of characters. Everybody is given kind of a moment to shine, even down to the janitor of the place.
Right. Yep. Best new play. I didn't agree with you on this one, but you had Cheyenne from Cipriano Ortega, Control Group Productions. Why did you pick this one?
I picked this one because I thought it was a really well done four-hander that kind of dug deep into themes of grief and kind of what you have to do to quote unquote make it in the art sphere. I thought it was incredibly timely, very well written, and the production itself was very well done. Featured some really beautiful scenic design. It was mounted over in Aurora's the People's Building, and that space can be really tricky particularly for new producers to kind of manage and get their hands around because it's a lot more theater than I think people are used to. But this space was really well managed and blocked, and I thought all the performances really allowed the script to shine. But there are other plays. Some of the yeah, I guess I can see why you might push back. I could also see this next category also being considered for best play, and it was kind of I asked if I could award multiple, but they said I had to pick one in each category.
Uh-huh. Okay, so this is another really specific category, but definitely agree with your choice for it. Best costume design and musical number about shit.
How often do you get to write that headline?
Probably
And
never again. I don't know.
that I think probably never again. But there was a clear winner. This is Eyes Up, Mouth Agape over at Buntport Theater, and in collaboration with Emily K. Harrison of Square Product Theater. Just hilarious exploration of a shitty situation on a bridge.
Yep. Yep. And we've talked a lot about it in the past. So, but yeah, that was one of the funniest things I've seen Bunport do in a while. Best New Comedy Festival, Denver Sketch Festival. I don't think I knew much about this one.
Created by a great team, happened last fall over at Rise Comedy, and was kind of designed to show people that sketch could be more than just SNL and kind of that kind of version of sketch. It can be a lot more freeform, include more improv, more audience interaction, kind of be more themed. And so I think this 3-day festival that they hosted was a really, really exciting addition to Denver's already vibrant comedy scene.
All right. Well, I know you also had some other things with comedy and things like that in there, but I think in the interest of time, we're going to skip to the really big news this week, which isn't necessarily on stage; it's on screen, but we definitely dwell in that area as well. So, Sundance, Tony, you know a lot more about this than I do, but they're coming to Boulder.
That's right, baby. We talked about it on the podcast last week, and we said that they would be making a decision soon, and boy, did they.
Yeah.
Uh, Boulder beat out bids to keep the event in Utah and a competing offer to move the film festival to Cincinnati. And so, starting in 2027, the film festival is going to be going to Boulder. It actually was originally conceived and pitched to be in Boulder, but it wasn't able to happen at the time, so ended up being in Utah. So now it's in Boulder. It's going to be here. People suspect that it's largely going to be taking place around Pearl Street. A lot of the programming will happen there. There's speculation that Mackey Auditorium is going to be the big kind of place for it. There's going to be events at the Boulder Theater, it sounds like, as well as auxiliary programming at the Dairy and other venues spread out around Boulder. I know there were some people who were saying maybe that they might spread out and do some programming in Longmont, which also has a couple of other theater spaces. But it sounds like from early talk and from people who are close to the festival that they want to keep the event largely within Boulder, and that's part of the reason why they selected the city.
Mackey, interesting. So, I was a Jace journalism school student many moons ago, where Mackey had the J school back in the day, and I remember it was a very creaky old building. Have they updated that at all, or are they going to update it to accommodate this kind of stuff?
I know for a fact from talking with the people who run CU Presents that there is a request to update Mackie. Currently, being submitted to the school, I would imagine that maybe that request is going to get bumped up, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it could be really good for CU Boulder. Not that they need. I think they don't have any trouble recruiting students there, but yeah, of course, everybody likes to complain about the traffic in Boulder and the price of everything. So they're definitely going to be. There's going to be a lot of moaning about that, I'm sure, and more to come on that story. But heading down south, you had something about Creed. What's this one?
Yeah, so after we shared news that it had made its world premiere at South by Southwest in Austin earlier in March, but Creed USA, which is the film about Creed rep, has continued its rollout at film festivals. It was an official selection of the Cleveland International Film Festival and had two screenings on March 28th and 29th with the director Corn Cooperman and some of the film's subjects, which is super exciting there. It's continuing its kind of rollout and slow takeover of the film festival space. Still no word on when it is coming to Colorado or going to be distributed wide, but
Yeah,
it's an exciting kind of indicator of early traction with the project.
that's great. Yeah, and you and I are trying to plan a trip down to Creed to check out some of their plays this summer. So,
That's right.
this next one, what's this about a Denver film team going to Cannes, the film festival
That
in France?
That's right. A very esteemed film festival, Brother Girls, which was it's a short film that was born out of last July's Denver 48-hour film competition that takes place annually at the Bug Theater, in which teams have, as the name implies, 48 hours to write, produce, and shoot a film that then they will be screened against others in competition. Brother Girls won it won the competition at the Bug Theater last July, and then it won the audience choice at Filmapalooza in Seattle just recently, which means it's going to be moving on to be screened in May at the Cannes Film Festival. So very
That's
exciting.
exciting. Yeah, for sure. And then some news from Colorado Springs. What's this? Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center Theatreworks undergoing some changes.
That's right. Yeah. So our friend John Moore pointed out in his piece for the Denver Gazette that for one organization, change has been pretty constant over the last 2 decades, and while for the other, it's come at only the second time in 50 years, but they're both happening, interestingly enough, in Colorado Springs at the exact same time. So after only 18 months on the job, Nicole Herndon has resigned as the executive director of the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center, which was kind of rescued by the Colorado College in a 20 million deal completed back in 2017. So this was continuing turmoil at the Fine Arts Center, and it now has the Colorado College officials actively examining the rapid turnover among its executive leadership team because Herndon's predecessor, Idris Goodwin, served as the executive director for just a little over 2 years. And before Goodwin, Eric Handon had held the job for only about 2.5 years. So it's kind of this cycle of people stepping in, staying for about 2 years, and then kind of leaving, which Herndon is kind of continuing that process of. She resigned last month to accept a position at an arts museum in West Texas that is going to remain unannounced until the museum itself shares the news. So, but at the time, an interim executive director is not going to be named, and the search to replace Herndon is on pause until the college gets a better handle on what exactly is happening at the Fine Arts Center.
All right. Wow. And then what about Theatreworks? So this is another interesting kind of partnership between a university and a theater company.
Yeah, that's right. And they're also going through a leadership transition. It's been about 5 months since Caitlin Lowens resigned to accept a new job in Minneapolis. Theatreworks, like the Fine Arts Center, is a professional theater company that's aligned with the college. In this case, the University of Colorado Springs. Unlike the Fine Arts Center, Lowens was actually the company's second artistic leader in about 50 years of existence.
Wow.
And so that's crazy. The previous leader had been there for decades, kind of sheltered that. And so David Siegel, who's the executive director, of the Ent Center said that the process to find Lowndes' successor is being measured. Phase one, which they're currently in, is an opportunity for leadership to meet with stakeholders who are going to help them identify how Theatreworks can be the most successful over the next 50 years. Only then will a search firm be chosen that will identify a national field of candidates. Although apparently, according to reporting by John, Siegel would not commit to a traditional succession plan, which maybe suggests that the leadership tree might be in for some rebranding. So
Okay.
we'll be on the watch for that. But currently, David Dadlin, the former CEO of the Fine Arts Center, is serving as Theatreworks interim artistic director, and Siegel is going to announce the company's 50th season lineup, which was largely crafted by Lowndes, at a party at 7 p.m. on April 14th, and promises a, quote, crowd-pleasing season that meets our audiences where they are right now.
All right. So, also news from Vintage Theater in Aurora that executive director Margaret Norwood is stepping down. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so after 3 years of service in the executive role and 6 years of service on the board of directors, Margaret is going to be stepping down to pursue other creative and professional endeavors. She says she's going to stay on through its current season, which ends in late June. And she says she's proud to have been entrusted with leading Vintage Theater, one of the most prolific and vibrant arts organizations in our region. Together, we've produced high quality theater that not only entertains, but strengthens the bond within our community, work that matters now more than ever. So she sounds like she's leaving on her own terms. She certainly had a pretty impressive tenure. She helped shelter in the purchase of Vintage Building, which is securing its long-term stability as part over in Aurora and part of the Arts District, and has certainly expanded partnerships with the local government. But as we've talked about on the podcast before, Vintage has also had quite a few kerfuffles over the past couple years that maybe so she's also have been there and having to lead through that. So quite an interesting time for leadership. So over there.
Yeah. All right. Well, on some other news, the Colorado New Play Festival in Steamboat Springs just announced its 27th season. So this is, a new play festival that we are actually going to try and get down to this year. I think we've got that lined up to do. So this is June 13th and 14th. Can you tell us what plays they're going to have there?
Yes, they're going to be featuring Creature Feature by Noah Diaz, Friday, June 13th. This is being presented by Roundabout Theater Company from New York. And it's following an 11-year-old who has always lived in the shadows of the Macabre Mausoleum, which is a family's hit television show that showcases low budget horror films. And so this is kind of a memory play about the beauty and horror of changing the roles that we're assigned to play in life. So sounds like an interesting piece.
Yeah, that's right up your alley, horror guy.
Exactly. I'm excited to dig into this one a little bit more for
Yeah.
sure.
And the next one, I'm just going to take a stab at this. Dawn by Tuyet T Pham. I'm just guessing that's like maybe a Vietnamese name. So, um, and this is from Everyman Theater in Baltimore, which is cool. Is that this festival is not just Colorado plays.
Yeah, and it's this one is kind of set against the backdrop of historical trauma and follows a mother and daughter who confront their legacy of love and loss as first generation Cambodian Americans.
Okay, Cambodia. All right, cool. And then Vienna, Vienna, Vienna by Carly Perloff. So she just had her show "If God Were Blue" at the DCPA's new play festival.
Yeah, she's on quite a roll here in Colorado in terms of getting her plays developed. That's very impressive. Being presented by Six Point Theaters, based out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and it follows three generations of a close and complicated Jewish family who arrive in Vienna for an award ceremony and end up reconsidering everything they believe in while eating a great deal of excellent chocolate cake.
Interesting. I wonder if that's those Vienna Sacher torts or something like that. Lauren M. Gunderson, one of the most produced playwrights out there, has a play here called Muse of Fire. So this is from Northlight Theater in Skokie, Illinois. What's this one about?
So this is a two-hander that explores the life and love of William Shakespeare and his wild-hearted wife Anne Hathaway. Not that Anne Hathaway. This is a different one,
Right.
but that is his wife's actual name, and so it dives into that. This has had some readings elsewhere, and some other development, but it's pretty cool that Lauren is coming to Colorado to try out her latest work.
Yeah, maybe we can interview her while we're there.
Great idea.
Yeah. So, also announcing some stuff just today. Curious announced their 28th season. So I'll just read these out because you can go on their site and learn all about it. Eureka Day by Jonathan Spector will be in September, kicking off the season. Job by Max Wolf Friedlich in November. That's a regional premiere. Bad Books by Sharon Rothstein in January, February. So this is also a rolling world premiere, new play. And Another Kind of Silence by L.M. Feldman, another rolling world premiere that's bilingual in English and American Sign. So that's cool. And then the season closes out with Furlough's Paradise by A.K. Payne, a regional premiere. So, yeah, new stuff from Curious coming out.
And they say that they are going to be doing this next season in the same building on Acoma. So this comes after their public outcry last year saying that they needed to raise $25,000 in order to stay afloat. But Jada Suzanne Dixon, who's the artistic director, told John Moore for the Denver Gazette that although the building is still on the market for sale, we feel comfortable saying that we will continue to call our beloved Acoma Street building home through our upcoming season 28. The truth is, we're in a fortunate position with the building. We're simply not waiting for any offer. We're being thoughtful about the deal we pursue.
Ah, is it kind of like Beetlejuice, where like when people come in to look at it, they try and like scare them away or something like that?
Yeah, I think they have curious staff who are hiding behind the seats and they pop out. They've got
Right.
them in the wings who come out and they chase people away if they're not an arts minded or organization or another kind of a nonprofit that
Uh-huh.
lives in the similar space is curious. I know that's kind of the organizations that they're looking out for. To kind of buy. And but as for kind of a specific or update on the kind of financial health of Curious, Jada said that there's nothing that she can really offer on that at the moment. So, just kind of if you want Curious to continue, they actually still have their Fund the Future campaign live at the moment, so you can help them out. Yeah, nonprofits, they're always looking for those donations.
Yep. Speaking of a theater that closed last year due to funding issues is maybe returning. What's this one, Tony?
So, after 5 years of bringing local theater to the community, we reported last year that Wheat Ridge Theater Company was going to be closing due to mounting financial issues and board changes that pushed the company to the brink. And after their final show that was a Christmas piece they produced, it seemed to do just that. However, this weekend, I received a Facebook invitation to an announcement party on Saturday, April 26th at 4 p.m. at Bravo Cafe for the quote, special announcement and unveiling of our new name and logo. So they're going to be sharing details about that over coffee at this business in just a couple of weeks. They also shared a survey that they are hoping to gather people's opinions about what they want from a local community theater. So they're clearly in that kind of rebuilding phase at the moment. More details to come when we know more.
Great. Well, good luck to those folks. They did do some great stuff under the Wheat Ridge name, and who knows what they're going to be called next. So, what's next?
So if you are downtown for any shows at the Denver Center anytime soon, I'd encourage you to check out this really cool mural that's celebrating unsung heroes in the Denver art world. It's called Catalyst. It's created by Jan Hathworth and dozens of others contributing artists. And it launched on Friday, March 14th. And it's currently installed on the southern wall of the Buell Theater for the next 2 years.
Cool.
So that billboard space is switched out regularly with artwork by the Denver Theater District, and they who brings in local nonprofits and media companies to kind of design for that. And so this current mural features people like Lonnie Hansen, Family Theater Company members, Sarah Tallman of Wonderbound, and Cipriano Ortega, who on in this mural up there. It's a really really vibrantly depicted piece. And if you are just in the area, I'd encourage you to swing around to the back of the Buell and check it out.
Cool. Definitely will. Next up, local theater company just announced the plays for their local lab new play festival, which is coming up here in just a few weeks, and we'll be there. So this one features somebody who we were just talking about, Stephen J. Burge, who additionally being a great actor is also a playwright. So this is a show called, said mostly solo performance called Batshit. So Nick Chase over there at Local is directing with Jerry Henshaw as dramaturg. So this sounds autographical play at addiction and mental illness with sharp humor and sensitivity. So I'm looking forward to that one. And as Steven says, it's part confessional, part storytelling, all ridiculous.
Sounds like a great time. But about a very serious issue. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious to see how that kind of dark comedy is applied to this situation.
Yeah.
Also featured in the festival is the latest work by Massachusetts playwright and poet Corey Alston, who's returning to Local with a bedtime story for black boys on the moon. This work blends heightened poetic language with music and a Greek chorus, and is a companion piece to Alston's A Case for Black Girls Setting Central Park on Fire, which Local developed in fall 2023 under the direction of co-artistic director Betty Hart. And Betty's returning this time to also work on this production.
Cool. And then rounding out the lineup is a award-winning screenwriter, Amy Toff's dark comedy Blood-Sucking Leech, and that's all one word. In this new play, a middle-aged daughter attempts to protect her mother from catfishers and con artists. So that sounds pretty au courant. And Diana Dresser is directing, which I didn't know. I don't know that I've seen her in the director's chair. Great actor. Diana Dresser is directing this one.
I think she's directed one or two times, but I like you most commonly. I most commonly see Diana on stage, where she's quite excellent. She was great in the Arvada Center's production of the book club play last season.
Mm-hmm.
Final bit of news before we throw to our next segment. The Aurora Fox Art Center is going to be getting some new seats. I was just chatting with Rich Cowden, who's the executive producer over there, and he was telling me that they have confirmed it. They've got the seats picked out. They've got them ready to come in, and they will be installed after their summer camps that are taking place this year. So look forward to that next when you come back after the summer.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. You know, we like to bitch about seating, so.
And this is one of many repairs that they've been doing over at the Fox. So we discussed on the podcast that they reworked the neon sign that they've got above. Now it looks beautiful at night when it's lit up. Rich was telling me they're doing some HVAC work, which is not sexy to talk about, but is going to feel so good. Exactly. That black box space in particular was not designed to be a theater. It was designed to be a warehouse. And so it is heated and cooled accordingly, which means it is, as anyone can attest, if you've been in the space, in the summer, it is very, very hot. And in the winter, it is very, very cold, but no longer. They're getting a new HVAC system. So exciting stuff is happening over at the Fox.
That's great. Hey, quick shout out to Nick Rigg Johnson, whose birthday is today. Just saw that come up on my Facebook feed of the aforementioned D-Town and many other things. Also, Helen Murray, former artistic director of the Aurora Fox, aforementioned. So,
yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we are going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And when we return, we will share our top 10 Colorado headliners, as well as Alex's interview with Lynn and Luke about National Bohemians.
OnStage Colorado is supported by the Aurora Fox Arts Center, whose production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime runs March 21st through April 13th. The play earns 6 Tony Awards, including Best Play, and delves into the mind of a remarkable young man on a quest for the truth. Tickets at aurorafoxartscenter.org. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is Denver's Curious Theater, presenting Downstate March 13th through April 13th. The hard-hitting play shares the story of 4 men convicted of sex crimes who share a group home post-incarceration. Tickets at curioustheater.org. Support for OnStage Colorado also comes from the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of The White Ship runs April 10th through May 4th at the Boulder Dairy Center. Straight from its critically acclaimed run off-Broadway, The White Ship is the true story of one man's journey from alcoholism to recovery in a play the New York Times described as laugh out loud funny, and gasp-inducing self-inflicted tragedy. Tickets at betc.org. OnStage Colorado is brought to you by the Town Hall Arts Center, presenting Once, March 28th through April 27th. Featuring all the captivating music from the Oscar-winning movie musical of the same name, Once features a cast of multi-talented actors and musicians who will invite audiences into a magical world powered by creativity, passion, hope, and song. Tickets at townhallartscenter.org. OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by the Arvada Center, presenting A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, running through May 11th. When charming and cunning Monty Navarro discovers he's in line for an earldom in the aristocratic Dicewith family, he speeds up the line of succession through any means necessary, all while juggling his mistress, his fiancée, his reputation, and an increasing body count that's raising suspicions of the law. Tickets at arvadacenter.org. All right, we are back and ready to hit this week's Colorado headliner. So these are some of the upcoming shows we think you should know about in no particular order. Tony, you want to kick it off?
Sure, I'm kicking us off first with a festival that's happening down in Durango. This is the Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival. It's being hosted concurrently at the Durango Art Center and the historic Stratter Hotel, April 3rd through the 6th, and features some of the greatest ragtime and classic jazz musicians from around the United States coming to Durango for 4 days of concerts, silent movies, seminars, after-hour jams, parties, and so much more. So
that sounds fantastic.
like a pretty sick event. Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I was a kid learning piano, man, I loved ragtime. I used to be able to play that Maple Leaf Rag and all that kind of stuff.
And I love this, that they're going to have some silent films that they're going to have accompanied and such. So it sounds like it should be a really cool exploration of all this music can be.
Yeah. All right, up here in Lakewood, Above My Pay Grade at What If Theater. So this will be Fridays and Saturdays in April. And I haven't been over to What If Theater yet. I'd like to get over there because I'm not 100% sure what they're doing. But this says this show, no matter where you work, you hopefully have that person that you trust with the office gossip, your work wife or husband who gets you through the day. You probably also have that person who's either a know-it-all who's been there way too long, or adult who someone manages to avoid any actual work. So this Above My Pay Grade peeks behind the break room door to explore the alliances, rivalries, and ridiculousness that come with clocking in. So that sounds really interesting, and I'm not sure whether this is like a scripted thing or an improv thing or what. So definitely check out their website if you're interested in this one.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have to head over to Lakewood and experience this for ourselves one of these days.
Yeah.
My next pick is happening down in your neck of the woods, Alex. It's Ken Lutwig's Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery at the Lone Tree Arts Center, running April 3rd through the 13th.
Yeah, I'm actually going to that one since it is literally the closest theater to my house here in Highlands Ranch. So don't want to miss anything there. So I'll be that one. And I haven't seen that one. It's a much produced show.
Same. I will also be there on opening, so I will see you there.
Oh, cool.
But I also haven't seen this one myself. I'm very aware it's riffing on kind of this really popular case. But the thing that really grabbed me was it's being directed by Matt Zambroni, who I know from improv as well as he's a very talented actor. And it features Gareth Sachs as Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, man.
Cameron Davis as Dr. Watson, and Brian Black, Zazie DeCameron, Noelia Antweiler, and Jamie Molina as the ensemble. And all of those actors I've seen on stages before, and they are all exceptional at their craft. So I am very excited to see them on stage doing this kind of farcical take on Sherlock Holmes.
Do we know who's producing this one, Tony?
I believe it's being produced in-house by Lone Tree. So they recently started doing a couple of in-house productions each season. And I believe this is one of them.
Cool. All right. My next one is the very well-known Stories on Stage program, which happens more or less monthly around town. It's a reading where they kind of, it's more of a staged, a little more staged than a lot of readings. So this one's called Maybe You Should Stop Talking at Su Teatro in Denver on April 6th. Banger cast: Jess Rob Lee, Christina Fontaine, and Jeffrey Kent. Oh my gosh. So I'm not sure what this one's about, but it sounds like it'll be I'm sure with that cast, it's got to be well worth checking out. So that's maybe I should stop talking. At Teatro on April 6th.
Bowls with the Bard returns to the Copy Joint in
Oh,
my
dude.
next headliner. They are doing Stone 12th Night, April 3rd through the 14th, and they are billing this as a queer take on this production. And I got a chance to talk with the director and some of the team a little bit about how they're doing it and how they handle getting high while on stage, which they all have different approaches. Some people get high before and then smoke CBD throughout. Some people are smoking throughout the entire thing. Some people wait until halfway through the show to actually start smoking so they can get their bearings on everything. So these shows are always a really fun delight. And if you pay the $5 consumption fee in at the Copy Joint, you too can get in on the smoking yourself and have yourself a merry time.
Wow. Yeah, I know. We've wondered about the trick of being able to remember your lines and stuff if you're that stoned. But a lot of people do their jobs stoned. If you ever worked in the restaurant industry or as a lift operator, but that's a little different. Well, I don't know if you're in the restaurant industry, you got to remember a lot of stuff too. But anyway, that's sounds like fun. Next up, I mentioned this because it's Swan Lake. It's Parker Pace Center on April 2nd. So this, of course, is a well-known ballet. But what's interesting about us is this is the dancers of the Ukrainian National Opera and Ballet Theater. So
Mm.
Ukraine really in the news, and so anything we can do to support Ukraine or Ukrainian folks, I would say definitely do it. And if you're into ballet, Swan Lake is one of the big ones. So that's at the Pace Center on April 2nd.
My next headliner is a part of Ba Blue Readers Theater program. It is the Clean House, and they're doing this play that is set in a metaphysical Connecticut and follows an overly serious, career oriented doctor who hires a quirky Brazilian maid who is too depressed to clean because she longs to be a comedian. And then the plot kind of follows this doctor when her husband, Charles, leaves her for his mistress, Anne, who is an irresistibly charismatic, much older Argentinian woman who he hopes to cure of cancer. So it is this kind of wacky comedy about loss, love, change, and redemption.
Okay, that sounds like fun. My next one, another ballet thing. I thought I would just mention this because it's Boulder Ballet at Corita in Boulder, which I believe is a restaurant on April 3rd. So this is their annual benefit, but it sounds like, man, if you want to drop some money and go to something super fancy, it sounds like a really cool evening, which it's got culinary delights, community connections, stunning rooftop dance performances, curated culinary experiences, and all that kind of thing. So that's on April 3rd at the Carita for the Boulder Ballet.
Nice. My final pick is over at Firehouse Theater Company in Denver. It's Perfect Arrangement. This runs April 4th through May 9th, and it's set in 1950s and new colors are being added to the Red Scare. Two U.S. State Department employees, Bob and Norma, have been tasked with identifying sexual deviants within their rank. But there's just one problem. Both Bob and Norma are gay and have married each other's partners as a carefully constructed cover. This play is written by Topher Payne, who local audiences might remember from his production of You Enjoy Myself over at local theater just a couple of years ago. And it's inspired by a true story of the earliest stirrings of the American gay rights movement.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll probably hit that one. All right, my final headliner is at Modus Playback Theater at the Boulder Dairy Center, April 5th. So this is a improv theater where you yourself as an audience member share a short reflection or story, and then watch the actors enact your story on the spot using movement, music, and dramatic spoken word. So I haven't been to a Modus show. Have you, Tony? I think you have.
I have. I have not been to their playback theater show, but I've interviewed the team about their productions. Apparently, these really can go in any direction. So if you share a funny story based off of like your shopping experience or whatever, it might be a pretty humorous experience. But if you share a story about some kind of like graphic event that has happened in your past or something, they will do a more serious kind of improvisation that kind of is designed to help you unpack that story.
Okay, so it's not necessarily always comedic.
That's right. Yeah, it really can go however the audience wants it to. So whatever energy the audience member suggesting a story brings really sets the tone for the whole event.
Okay, cool. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that is it for our headliners.
Yeah, so now we are going to throw it over to your interview with Luke and Len to hear just a little bit more about National Bohemians.
We are here with Len Matheo, Artistic Director at Miners Alley Performing Arts Center in Golden, with playwright Luke Sorge, whose new show, National Bohemians, is going to be opening on March 28th, running through April 20th. And so this is a brand new comedy. So Luke, I wanted to start with you. This is kind of a diverse group of characters that are stranded during a hurricane. So what inspired you to create this scenario, and how did it serve as, I don't know, sort of a metaphorical or literal device for the script?
Oh man, I don't know. It's funny.
All right, next question.
It's funny to hear you call it a comedy, because the whole thing is about death. It absolutely is a comedy, but
okay,
it's inspired mostly. It's hard to go all the way back to the source, but it's inspired mostly by my dad and his brothers and a place that they would hang out in Betterton, Maryland. So like that's where I got the sort of setting and a little bit of the characters. And then after, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of revisions and rewrites, it moved pretty far away from who they are as people, but the setting and the title and some of the dynamics between the characters are still present from their source inspiration.
Okay. Did you watch Key Largo at any point in your development, or any other hurricane-ish things?
No, the less I know about hurricanes, the better.
Got it. All right. So Len, you are the artistic director there at Miners Alley, and typically in the director's chair, we don't see you on stage a whole lot. How did you get cast in this puppy?
Well, when we picked the play, when I picked the play, it was not to be in it. It's because, from my point of view, just from a simple playwriting perspective, it's a really good play. It has a lot going on, a lot of new moments, a lot of action. It's about something. And it has great characters, highly developed characters. So I fell in love with the play, and then we decided, because it's a new play, never been produced before, we decided to put it through the beginning of the development process, and we did just a reading with a group of people in the theater, and it was everybody who's in the play except Warren was reading my part, and I was just observing. Okay, and I was observing, and then we were talking about it, saying, "Oh yeah, we still love this play now that we heard it on its feet. We still want to do it." And then we said, and I said, Warren, you initially were going to direct this, as opposed to back in the day when you were thinking of doing it at Benchmark. But do you want to be in it? Do you want to direct it? And he's like, I'm not sure. And I said, well, I think I could play that part. That part seems pretty much like up my alley as far as the kind of person I play well. And then we just went back and forth, like, well, you could direct it, or I could play it, or I could play it and you could direct it. And he said, why don't you play the part and I'll direct it? And I think that was the right choice, ultimately, because Warren really gets this play. So I think that it's a long way of answering your question. It's been a long time since I've been on stage, but I really love the play. I think it's a part that goes to my strengths as an actor. And I think maybe deep down I've been wanting to get back on stage for a while, and I just didn't, and I just haven't come to terms with that. But I don't know after this if I want to stay on stage, but I am really enjoying the process and really enjoying the words I get to speak every night. So.
Okay. Can you just briefly tell me who's the character, and why do you feel so close to it?
Character is Tom Dorsey. Tom grew up in Betterton and was just lived the life of a young adventurer, and with his brother started a crabbing concern where they just kind of lived a very bohemian lifestyle. And then the brothers had a falling out over business, over different ways of running things. And Tom was always a good businessman, and Tom just went out on his own, and there was a lot of estrangement after that from the whole family. And then and I became a wealthy business person. I'm kind of labeled the Republican in the family, just because I have money. You know what I'm saying? And and so I related to it because I am a business person. I'm not really a Republican. That's a whole nother thing, but not even close. But I am a business person, and Tom is going through really hard life change. He's going through divorce. He's going through dissolution of his business. He's going through really hard times, and he's very volatile about this. And I used to be like that, so I get that kind of person. I'm not going through a divorce. I'm not going through rough business times, but I do understand that volatility, and I understand, and I find characters like that exciting. Characters that have trouble controlling their anger. I find that really interesting, and I've always played characters like that. So I found myself attracted to that kind of character because honestly, Alex, ever since I was a kid, and even to this day, when people literally push my buttons on purpose because it's funny to watch me get angry. I mean, they literally will just start bugging me and teasing me just to watch me get ticked off. And I know they're doing it for that reason. And I'm just sitting there going, and it's just so ridiculous. But so I have the innate knowledge that when I get angry, I kind of am ridiculous and funny. So I figured it was kind of something to play into, if you know what I mean.
To be clear, I have never intentionally pushed your buttons. I would never do such a thing.
To be clear, I doubt that is true, Alex. To be clear.
Some people just, they have a button like very visible on them that says push me.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I apparently don't have one of those. I don't get teased a lot. I don't know. Maybe I seem too serious or something. I don't know. But so look, National Bohemians, just the title itself, I thought I saw in some art for the show that was a beer can. Is that the name of beer? And is this the guys that drink this beer in Maryland?
Yeah, it's a Maryland beer, and Maryland is very proud of it. I made the joke to somebody that like if this hadn't been set in Betterton, Maryland, but was set in like a small mountain town in Colorado, it would just be called Keystone Light. Because I don't drink myself, but when we would visit every summer, my dad's family, he and his brothers would sit around and they would drink this beer, like a lot of it.
And it's shitty beer.
Yes, and the whole time I was so baffled because they'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is terrible," and then they'd have another sip and they'd be like, "Yeah, this is terrible," and they'd go through cases of the stuff. But so and your mileage may vary on whether there's a metaphor in the title as well, but yeah, it's named after the beer.
Okay, well,
and it's affectionately known as Natty Bo.
Okay,
yeah.
And if you were doing it in like upstate New York, it'd be Jenny Screamers.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
It is like Genesee or,
Schlitz, Rolling Rock,
or Natty Lights. We used to call them. We drink those natural lights because they were you could drink so many of them. It was like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just so you know, this is my producer hat on for a second. We're going to be selling Natty Bo at the theater. It's
okay.
We found a way to get it from Maryland, so we are going to sell it.
And don't listen to my dad and his brothers. It is delicious. Purchase it liberally at the bar, please.
Yes. Is it going to be on tap or in cans? Probably
cans.
Okay.
Cans. We can. Yeah.
All right. Well, so look, how long did I hear you mention it was going to be originally at the Edge? So you've had this in the works for a couple of years, maybe.
Sort of, yeah. It was when the Edge sort of became Benchmark, if you will. Their literary manager at the time was Jeffrey Newman, who's a wonderful playwright.
Right.
And I should shout out right now is really responsible for bringing National Bohemians to life. Like, he's been a wonderful mentor and friend to me. And his fingerprints are really all over this show. But they did a play of his called What You Will. And they went through a sort of workshopping process with this play, and then staged it. And everyone had such a good time. I also want to shout out Rachel Rogers, who was the artistic director of Benchmark and is just a really smart. She lives in Los Angeles now, but is a really smart and passionate theater maker. And so they said, let's do this again with another writer. And they had this call. I can't remember if it was open submissions or if they invited people to submit. And the committee chose National Bohemians. And so then we went through a workshop. We did some table reads. Warren was always sort of the director of the table reads. Jeff was always there. Rachel was always there. And we cast different actors and learned a lot about the script and went through revisions and stuff. And it seemed like we were on the path towards production when the pandemic hit. Remember that?
Oh, I do.
And so I got the benefit of the play becoming a lot better because of all these people working on it, but not the benefit of seeing it produced. And then years later, I kind of think it was unrelated. I sent it to Len maybe even before Warren came on board at Miners. Yeah. And so then I'm not sure how that happened, but I think, maybe you brought it up and Warren was like, I still, I have a soft spot for that play because he was always very complimentary of it and helpful in its development. So that's sort of how it happened. And honestly, the like full long story of it is kind of funny because I was in college. I had like a lit class, American drama. And as the final for this class, you could either write like criticism of a play that we'd read throughout the semester, or you could just write a play. And I was a terrible student. So I was like, writing a play sounds easier. And so I just sort of like wrote this play and turned it in. And the teacher, who's actually a wonderful woman, I got to know her after graduating a little bit. And her name's Kate Wiley, great writer in her own right. Her response was like, I don't think any of this works, but hey, you wrote a play, so kudos. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so it's technically the first play I ever wrote, but obviously that initial version is significantly different and much worse than this play. But it was my attempt to sort of squeeze everything that I had read during the semester into one play, like American dramas about family and that take place in one location and everybody's alcoholic. And you know what I mean? Like it was, I just wanted to throw all the cliches into one beery stew. So.
All right. Well, one of the things that I love about this play is the cast. So in addition to Len, Jenna Mulrays, who's just been on fire lately, she's both directing and acting, and she's just so much fun to watch. And you can also, the last time I saw her, she was serving me a beer at Miners Alley. So she does it all. And it's great to see Stephen Burge, who we don't see on stage nearly often enough. Because he's pretty busy over at Town Hall Art Center as their marketing director, and boy, is he a great actor. I look forward to seeing him. Tim Fishbaugh, I'm not as familiar with. I'm not sure if I've seen him in anything recently. But I'm sure
Fish
he's
is great
too.
It's
yeah.
the cast is incredible.
Tim's most recent thing was he played the narrator in our production of A Christmas Story. But Tim's done a bunch of stuff throughout town. He's a great singer, and one of the biggest roles he did with us was he starred in our production of Road to Mecca. This was really almost before your time in Denver. This was in 2014, and Tim is just one of those great understated actors. He gets mad at me when I call him an artist. Stuff like that. He's the but honestly, he's just such an anchor on the stage, and he is just such an amazing guy to work with, very giving, very generous. So I think you're going to really be in for a treat with Tim. I'm a big fan of Luke's work too. I don't know if you remember, but in 2021, I think, we're post-pandemic. We're trying to just produce anything. I produced Luke's play Zen and the Art of Profit. And it ended up just playing for like 15 people at a time, because that's all the union would allow in the theater. And we ended up streaming it and all this stuff. And I'll go out on a limb here and tell you that I think Luke is probably one of the best, and probably underrated because he doesn't produce a lot of his work around here, playwright. He's one of the best playwrights in this town. And honestly, it's hard to find great playwrights that are local. There's a lot of great writers. I mean, there really are. I mean, it's chock full. But I mean, playwriting is such a, and again, this is my development hat on, playwriting is such a craft in itself, in telling a story in a certain way, that includes character development, and it's meant to be performed and not read and whatnot. And so, but Luke is really, I think, a rising star in this way. And I'm glad I'm here at the beginning. So,
cool.
But the more Luke we can do, the better. Put it that way.
That's really nice of you to say. But if you weren't playing Tom, I wonder if your tune would change.
No, I wanted to produce it. Remember?
That's right. That's right. No, Luke, and working on that project, the Zen and the Art of Profit, was like a real eye opener. We'd worked together. You'd directed me a couple of times. Len directed my wife and me in a show called Lungs, and it's like the highlight of my artistic experience. It's the best, most enjoyable show I've ever been a part of. But we'd never gotten to work on the same side of the table, if you will. And so when we worked together at Zen, I thought we had a real chemistry, and we saw things in a similar way. So I was just absolutely thrilled that you were interested to produce National Bohemians as well, because I knew that our sensibilities were similar, and that it would match what we value in theater.
Yeah. And Luke is very, in the development process of the play. What I like about Luke is he wants to do that. There's a lot of playwrights, I find this fascinating actually, that they'll send you a play and they're like, please don't touch it, please don't change it, please don't. I'll say, this is development. We're gonna hear it, we're gonna watch it, we're gonna block it. Things might change. We're gonna learn about it. And a lot of playwrights are just it's like literally pulling teeth without Novocaine. Right. But Luke is much different. Luke is, I want to say he's almost the polar opposite. He wants development, and he wants, and if something is sacred to him, he doesn't really show it. But at the same time, it's he's just so available to change things, to make it better for the whole. And again, an absolute joy to work with in that sense. So I hope we get to develop a lot more work together.
That was my question. I was going to ask Luke, Len. Playwrights definitely differ in how much they want to be involved in the process of rehearsal. So you've been sitting in and taking notes and making tweaks and things all along?
The thing that I really want out of the process is to be able to make it a little more efficient, because the actors are able to communicate something faster, more efficiently than the words can, whether it's a look or a gesture or whatever. If something, being in rehearsals, you can find out if something is playing without the words, then you don't need the words. And it's such a cliche to say that a play is really just the blueprint, and then everybody comes together to build the thing. But that is how I see it. As much as I enjoy reading plays and wish that it had a place in our literary society to just read plays, that's not the finished product. The finished product is the play. So the actual production. And most of the time, actors and directors and even designers have a better sense of like their role in it than I do. And so the actors can teach you things, and they can illuminate things that you didn't know were there, that you can help bring out, or you didn't know were there and you can, scrub away. In fact, in rehearsals, Jenna like found kind of a plot hole that, again, I've read this play 1,000 times and I've rewritten it 1,000 times, and she was like, "Hey, this doesn't make sense." And I was like, "Jesus, thank you." If it hadn't been for her, it just would have continued to be in there. So
Indeed.
so yeah, and also it's kind of the most fun. I joke that I might not ever want to act again, because after opening night, I'm sort of done. Because being in the room and rehearsing and finding it together, that's where the sort of the juice is for me. That's what I like most about working on plays. So the great thing about being the playwright is you get to be there for all of that.
And that'll be new for me. The process, I've always been in the process, and it's a joy to be in the process as an actor. But once we open, I'm just be like, well, I got to do this how many more times? You know what I mean? I can't just go home now.
Yeah.
I will say this, Alex. I did want to say that something that's fascinating about my character is he is very different than me as a person. Everyone jokes around. They call me Zen Len because I'm, just so, I'm pretty equanimous. I am, I'm a lifelong meditator. All that kind of stuff. And here I am literally bouncing off the walls, literally saying the word fuck every other minute in the script. And I just keep wondering if all these patrons who've gotten to know me over the last 20 years are going to be like,
who is
wow, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that kind of engagement, because I think that's going to be pretty funny, honestly.
That's great. Real quick, before I wrap up, I want to ask first, Luke, what's next? What do you have anything lined up after this? Working on hard anything?
Well, I'm really glad you asked, because it's a little bit simultaneous to this. I'm working with Red Rocks Community College on a play of mine called Taco Town, and we're doing like a 3-night sort of workshop presentation. Like it's a production, but the idea is it's part of the development, and the folks, the director over there, Wolf Sherrill, and all the actors that they've gotten are wonderful to work with, and helping me find exactly what we just talked about with National Bohemians, helping me find that with this play called Taco Town. If folks are interested in seeing it, it's on April 17, 18, and 19. And then National Bohemians closes April 20. So it's a busy time, but it's really exciting. So
Cool.
that's what's next for me. And then as it goes in playwriting, there's probably like a half-decade fallow period where I bang my head against the wall trying to write something else and get something else produced. But I've got a couple of scripts like in the back pocket that I'm always submitting, and so hopefully something happens with one of those.
And Len, real quick, what's the next couple of shows coming up at Miners Alley after this one?
Well, after this, we are doing Ring of Fire.
Okay.
Jukebox type musical that's just going to play through the summer, really. It's going to be an 8-week run. It's one of those shows that just a lot of people love. And it's the kind of show that'll just bring in a lot of money to help pay the bills in a brand new space, but also bring a lot of artistic excellence and joy to the community. Then we're doing Stephen Sondheim's Assassins over the summer that Warren is directing and David Nels is music directing. And that's going to be, I think, a stellar production. We're doing a regional premiere of another play from the Purple Rose, this one written by Jeff Daniels, called Diva Royale.
That's cool.
And we're doing that in the fall. And then, and I think I mentioned this to you as a little secret, but we're going to be announcing it soon. We are doing a new production. I don't know if I can say. I don't want this on the podcast yet because we haven't announced it.
Okay.
This is and so we're going to see the first draft of the script in April. April 1st, and we're going to be doing that in rep with It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play during the winter.
Great.
That's going to be really exciting. That's something that as a theater we're working on. We really want to do new work. And so we have a new play from Luke. We're going to have a new play from David, and we want to start at least maybe half of the work we do during the year to be new, and be in the development process of creating great theater. And
Hell yeah.
So that's our goal for the future.
Excellent. All right. Well, National Bohemians at Miners Alley Performing Arts Center will be up March 28th through April 20th. And really looking forward to checking that out from local playwright Luke Sorge and Len Matheo, the artistic director. Thanks so much for being on the OnStage Colorado podcast, and break legs.
Alex,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and also just thank you for doing this. Like, I listen to the podcast, I read the website, and
great.
like
Ditto.
we so value it as a community. Thank you for being a part of it and for covering the theater scene so like passionately and sensitively, and it's just really appreciated. Keep up the good work, man.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Alex.
Appreciate that. All right. Well, thanks again, gents, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great chat with Luke and Len. I love those guys. They're so funny and so knowledgeable.
Yep. Of course, I love talking to playwrights whenever, and of course, having Len along was great since he's runs the show over there with Lisa and also is in the show. So
absolutely. So, what else is new or coming soon on the site, Alex, that folks can check out?
Well, the aforementioned National Bohemians, my review of that is up. I'll have the Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder review up here pretty soon. April Took's review of Turn of the Screw down in Colorado Springs is up there now. And then, as we just said, I'll be at Baskerville on Thursday, so I'll have that review up as well.
Nice. And then next week on the podcast, we are going to be joined by a very, very special guest host. We're going to be chatting with local actor and DU professor Ann Penner, who is going to be talking a little bit about educational theater and her career in Colorado. So she's a fantastic actress. I'm very, very excited that she was able to make some time for us to join us on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very thoughtful person just to talk about theater in general too.
Yeah, and then we are also going to have your interview with Megan Holdman of Green Theater, and I know it's a little bit ahead of Earth Theater, but I hear you're going to be talking about how to make Earth Day. And we'll also have your interview with Megan Holdman of Green Theater. And I know it's a little bit ahead of Earth Day, but I hear you're going to be talking a little bit about how to make theater a little bit more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, for sure. Earth Day may be April 22nd, but this is close enough. I think April's sort of like Earth Month, and as the Trump administration destroys all of our progress we've made so far, this is a little apropos. So yeah, it's a really interesting organization she has just to try and encourage theaters to not throw out all of that stuff. Repurpose things. Set pieces, props, costumes, all that stuff. So anyway, yeah, if you want to stay up to date on what's going on in theater and comedy venues across the state, some dance, sometimes we have some theater, some music in there, or some theater. Of course, we have theater, music, and other things in our calendar. Subscribe to our OnStage Colorado newsletter, a Theater Blast, which comes out every Thursday.
Yeah, and if you like what we're doing here on the podcast, please consider leaving a review wherever you're listening now, and tell the other theater lovers in your life about us.
All right, that's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.